Okay guys, welcome to this class. So in this class I'll be showing you how to download and install WordPress on your local server. So this is the major starting point where you start actually doing live work, where you start building websites. So after this step, you are going to, if you go through this step, you will see that you are able to actually put up a website in just, should I say 5 minutes? For me, it depends on how long for you, but in just 5 minutes, if you follow everything in this guide, you put up a basic, not a fully functional website, but you put up your starting block to start developing websites using WordPress. So in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to install, that is how to download and install WordPress on your local server. So the first thing you need to do is to download WordPress. Okay, so we spoke about the two types of WordPress, and we differentiated between WordPress.com and WordPress.org. And for this tutorial I told you we'll be working with WordPress.org because it's the more flexible aspects type of WordPress, and it gives you the freedom to do anything, and you can install it anywhere you want, either on a local server or a live server. So now the first thing you need to do is to download WordPress. So we are going to WordPress.org and we are going to download WordPress. So go to your browser and type in WordPress.org. Okay, so this is the page, the WordPress.org page. So somewhere at the bottom you scroll down, so they're just listing all the features here. So somewhere at the bottom just scroll down and click on Get WordPress. This will take you to the download page. So from here click on download WordPress.5.3.2. that is the latest version of WordPress as of right now, from version 5.3.2. okay, so download, click the download button and it will start downloading instantly. Okay, I think I have like 3 versions already. So the download will start. So once your download is done, you just go to your downloads folder and you search for the file. It's a zip file, okay, ZIP, that is a compressed file. Okay, so you just search for WordPress on your system. Okay, so this is the WordPress installation file, and I don't know, but you may not have this particular software on your system, so I will recommend you download it. Okay, go download WinRAR. I'm going to type it here, download WinRAR. This will help you to access zipped files and folders. So just for example, like the zip file, the WordPress zip file, when you have a software like WinRAR on your system, it will help you access it. So just go search on Google and download WinRAR. Okay, so that's just by the way, but basically any system can actually open a compressed folder by default, but WinRAR will just make it easier for you. I already have WinRAR, so you will see it here. This is WinRAR itself. This thing that looks like a belt, looking like books, that is the WinRAR software. WinRAR has taken over, so you can see WinRAR zip archive. So it has taken over already for me, so it makes it easy for me to open compressed files or zip folders. Okay, so now once your WordPress has downloaded, what you need to do now, okay, this is where the serious work starts. So let me search for WordPress. have too many downloads. Okay, I'm just going to type this. Okay, so once you find your WordPress file, this is it here, just right click on it, then copy. Okay, so we want to copy it now to our server directory. So you remember we installed a local server on our system. So this is just to tell you that after installing the local server, there is a portion on your system where the files of your website will live. Okay, so that is where they will live. So we are going to copy it to that place. So I'll be taking you there now. So from here, just copy this file, then on the right side of your folder menu, just look for local disk. Everybody has this on their system. If you don't, something is terribly wrong. Okay, so just look for local disk here, click that. So now we're in local disk. Now locate XAMPP. Okay, XAMPP, that's the software we downloaded, the local server software. So just locate XAMPP, look for it here. You can see it here, XAMPP. Open that, double click. Now we have a lot of folders here. Now what you just need to search for is htdocs. Okay, so search for htdocs. Here you have it, htdocs. You can see it here. Open it, and you see when you get here, all you just need to do is paste this. Okay, so done. Now this is the area of our system that actually contains all the websites on the local server. So if I'm going to start any website project, this is basically where I start. This is where it all begins. So you see this design to design dashboard. There are websites actually that live on my local server. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to extract our WordPress file so we can make it go live on our server. Okay, so now right click on this WordPress, then if you have WinRAR, which I've already recommended you to download, just come here and say extract to WordPress 5.3.2. make sure this is what you are clicking. Okay, so extract to WordPress 5.3.2. so that will take about 1 minute or 2. So the extraction is done. So what we need to do now, so this is the folder. It has created a folder, so it has extracted the contents of the WordPress file we downloaded here. So this is the WordPress folder. So what you need to do now is we are going to rename this folder. Okay, so this folder needs to be something related to maybe what we want to build. So let's assume we just say okay, my first website. Okay, just something to, you know, give it a difference that okay, this is what I'm building. Okay, so let's just call it my first website. So we are going to rename this folder. Okay, so rename, and let's call it my first website. And a little tip, don't put space behind it. Make sure there are no spaces. If you want to separate anything, it's better you use a dash like this. Okay, you know, hyphen. So don't use any space, don't give space. So just, you know, leave it like this, my first website, and enter. Okay, so now we have that. So what we need to do next is we'll open this folder, then open the WordPress folder. So you will see a lot of things inside this folder. So what we will need to do is we need to copy everything here, copy it out, not just even copy, we need to cut it out. So just cut, then go back, then in this folder here, this place, if I go back now, you see that it's my first website. So in my first website, this place, paste everything there. Okay, make sure you get this correctly or else you get errors. So paste everything here. So once you have that pasted, you can go ahead to delete this folder WordPress. Just delete that, we don't need it. So this is just what we want to achieve. Okay, so my first website, and now we need to access this. Okay, so this, what you're looking at here now, is a website. That is just what it looks like. Okay, this htdocs is like the general directory. It is where all the websites are stored, and the websites are in folders. Okay, so now this is my first website. It's more like a website already. Okay, so we just need to open this. So now we need to access this folder. So what you do is you go to your web browser. Okay, so then you type in localhost / the name of that folder. Okay, so if you remember, we named that folder. I told us to rename that folder to my first website. So you see it here. Let's go back. My first website. So that is the name of that folder. That's the folder, or should I say that's the website we want to access currently on our system. So now remember, we are doing all this without internet. We don't need internet connection to do that because we already have a local server. Okay, so localhost / my first website. Also, you need to confirm that your web server is on. Okay, so if your web server is not on, this is not going to work. Okay, so let's confirm that. I'm not really sure it's on. Let me just press enter, see what happens. I'm not sure it's okay. It's on. So let me show you again how you switch on that web server. You come here, you search for XAMPP like this. So search for XAMPP, then you see the XAMPP control app here. Then just come here, run as administrator. Click yes, and then the control panel is up. So I already have my server switched on, so that's why you can see it as stop. If you remember, I said just switch on Apache and MySQL, nothing else for now. So if I click these stop buttons, if I click it, these sites will not load again because my local server is switched off. So let me show you what I mean. Stop. Now let me refresh this. It's definitely not going to work. So you can see saying this site can't be reached. So you see that it's more like a website. Okay, it's a website, but it's hosted locally on the system, and we can't do anything without our local server. So this local server acts as an emulator. Okay, it emulates it just like it's online, but it's just on your system. Okay, and you're the only one that can access that website. So let's start the server back, start Apache and start MySQL. Okay, so now let's refresh this. So if you remember, what we did was localhost and / my first website and enter. So if all is well set up, you will find this page. So this is the WordPress setup page. Okay, this is the first page you will see when you want to set up WordPress. So this is where all the installation, you have to install WordPress first. Okay, so now let's get down to installing WordPress. So language English, just leave that way. To scroll down, click continue. Okay, so now we have welcome to WordPress and before getting started and all of that. So now we need these items here to install WordPress properly. Okay, so this is where I would like you to pay attention. Okay, because this area gives people a lot of headache. Okay, even when I started, it gave me headache. I used 1 hour on this place and I won't go anywhere because I didn't know how to install this very well. So now it says we need the following items. We need the database name, we need database username, we need database password, and we need a database host, and we need a table prefix. Okay, so for now you may not really know much about this database of a thing, how does it work, all of that, but you know what you are doing is you just want to install WordPress. That is your goal. Okay, so now you ask yourself, where are we going to get all this information? Database name, database username, database password, database host. Where will you get all of this? Okay, so if you remember, I spoke about the 3 things that make up your local server. You have PHP, MySQL, Apache. Now MySQL, if you also remember, I said is more like the database, and that is where information about your web application is stored. Okay, so now WordPress wants to install. Okay, we want to install WordPress, but WordPress needs a place to store its data. So as you do 1 or 2 things on your website, that is where it's going to store the data. That is why we have to face this step. Okay, so WordPress wants to connect to a database to actually get your website set up. So now what we need to do here, I'll go straight. Okay, all you need to do is come here, localhost /php my admin. Okay, okay, so now this is the PHP my admin page. Okay, so now the first thing we need to do is to create a database. Okay, if you come here and you view the requirements, it says you will need to know the following items, but before we know them, we need to even create them in the first place. Okay, so now this is really complicated, but I'm going to make it as simple as possible. Okay, so now the first thing is asking for is a database name. So we are going to create a database name. Okay, I want you to note this down. It's asking for a database name, so the first thing we need to do is to create a database. So now let's come back here to PHP my admin. What you need to do now is to create a database. So come over here, look at this place, new, click on new. So now we want to create a new database right from our PHP my admin. Okay, so you are doing complex stuff now, so don't feel cool yet until you get it right. Okay, so now we are going to call this database my first database. Okay, and then you don't have to touch this, just leave it the way it is. It's already set up for you in the best way possible. Click on create. So it's the database has been created instantly, no time. Okay, so my first database is created. So we have criteria 1, database name. So let's note that one down now. So if I were you, while I'm doing this, I'm also going to do the same thing. So database name is what? My first database. So now we have criteria 1. Okay, now criteria 2, it said it needs a database username. Okay, so what this means is it needs a username, that is, it needs someone that will have access to this database. Okay, it's more like someone that will be an intermediary between WordPress and the database. Okay, it's this person that is going to be communicating between WordPress and database. So that's just what it's asking for. So now we need to create a username, that is someone that will access this database. So we're going to do it from here as well. So come back here, just come look at this small home icon, click on it. Now come over to user accounts. Okay, now we need to create a new user. So just scroll down to the bottom, click on add user accounts. Okay, now we want to create the user account, which is also the username anyway. So now it's asking us what is the login information. Username, leave this the way it is, text field, just leave it. Now you can use anything for this, just like for the database. If you remember, I used my first database. You can also use anything for this. Okay, it doesn't have to be my first database and all of that, but you know, for just a start, for learning purposes, you can stick with what I use for now. But these values are not really constant. Okay, you can use anything. All right, so what you need to do now, we want to create a username. Okay, so now let's just say user. That's what I'll just give for my username. I'll call him user. Okay, host name is asking us who will be our host. If you remember, it asked us for database host, so we're also settling that one here, so you have to take note of that. Database host, okay, so it's here. We're actually going to do that here too as well at the same time, so it's call it localhost. Okay, it has to be localhost. Okay, so the next step, password. Okay, this is the password of the user that will be accessing the database. Okay, so just type in any password that you are sure you are going to remember, but for learning purposes you can use what I use, so let's just call it password. Okay, so what I typed here is password, small letter password. Okay, you can use anything you like as long as you will remember it. You can use anything you like. So what I typed was small letter password. You can see it here. Okay, then I'm retyping that password. Okay, authentication plugin, leave that the way it is. Generate password, we've already created a password, so leave that the way it is. Now scroll down to the bottom. The next box is saying database for user accounts. You have to skip that. We don't need that, it's not necessary, so just leave that the way it is. We'll skip that one. Okay, then the next step is asking for global privileges. Okay, so what is the power this user has over this database? What can this user access in this database? So just click on check all. Okay, so it's going to check everything here, so you don't have to touch anything else after clicking on check all. All right, so we've created the user, the local host, the password. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so now let's take note of what we just did. So WordPress asked us for, what are the things WordPress asked us for? Let's write them out somewhere. All right, database username. It also asked us for a database password. You've noticed we've already set all this thing, so that database password is the user password as well. So now for database host, we've set that as well. Then 5 is a table prefix. Okay, so now what's our database username? If you remember, it's user. So check here, database username user. So just come back here, just note it here, user. Password, if you remember, I just used password. Database host was localhost, if you remember as well, I used localhost. You can see it here, localhost. Okay, so what else? Then the table prefix, will come back to that. Okay, so now we've filled out all the fields here. So now let's just create this user. This next step here, just skip it, don't worry, leave it, it's not necessary. All right, so click go here, and that is it. You have added a new user for your database. Also, this user will also have access to any database you create on PHPMyAdmin. So even if you are going to create, to install another WordPress, you can use another database, but just use the same user, the same password, localhost. So that makes it very easy for you to create as many WordPress installations as you want. All right, so now we've created the user and we've added the privileges, and we've also created the database. So now the next step is to go and answer WordPress. Okay, so now from here we are going to click on let's go. We have all we need. So now database name here, so just take my first database. All right, now let me just, before we fill that, let me just give you an example of what will happen if you don't fill this out well. All right, so if you do not get all these fields correctly and then you click on submit, this is what you get. This is what you get: error establishing a database connection. That is, WordPress could not communicate to the database. That means the credentials are not correct. So that means you have to sit down with your database and do some serious work on it until you get the proper value. So that is just, this is just what is going to happen if the details you put in are not correct. Okay, so let's get in our own details now. Database name is my first database. Take that, paste. All right, username, user, that's what we used. So user, copy that and paste it here. Okay, password, password, so you copy that and paste it here. Database host, local host, of course it should be local host, so that is what is already there for you. Now table prefix. Table prefix is not a compulsory value that you have to find from somewhere. Okay, this your table prefix can be anything, just make sure it has this underscore, but by default it's always WP, and I will advise you leave it on WP for now until you start getting to advanced stages where you start using WordPress, you know, like mad. So you know, now me, I can manipulate that anytime, especially when you now start trying to secure your website from hackers and all of that. This is where this aspect will come in handy. Okay, but for now just leave that table prefix the way it is. So now we've gotten everything here, and what we just need to do now is submit. So now we just have to pray this works. If it doesn't work, oh my god, we need to go back and look for what we are doing wrong. Okay, so let's click on submit, and yes. All right, so all right, Sparky, you have made it through this part of the installation. WordPress can now communicate with your database. If you are ready, it's time to now run the installation. So WordPress has been able to communicate with the database. All right, so now let us install WordPress. So just click on the run the installation button here. Okay, so next step is, so the next step is to put in our site title. So what is the name of our website? Okay, so we said we just, for an example, we just use my first website, so let's just call it my first website. Now our website is going to have an admin backend. Okay, every WordPress installation comes with an admin backend. That is where all the magic happens. That is where you get to manage your website, make changes and all of that. So now it needs to be secure, so you need to have a password for your admin backend. So let's just create a username first. This is a box, just give it, you can give it anything you want as long as you will remember it, but for a beginner just use admin. Password, let's just use password. All right, so now it's the next step says confirm the use of weak password. Click yes, because the password is very weak. It's not a strong password, so we'll click on that. Your email, put in your email. So let's just use my own email. All right, then next up, it says discourage search engines from indexing this website. This is not really necessary because the site is not even online yet. It's still on our system locally, so we can skip that. So we have all this, so remember this. Okay, all right, your username and your password, that is what you use to log into your admin area. So your username, admin, password. So whatever you use, just make sure you remember it, and then install WordPress. So that happens almost instantly. It doesn't take time at all. Okay, it depends on the server, local server speed. If it's an online server, very fast, instantly. All right, so alright, so let's see. It says already installed. You appear to have already installed WordPress. To reinstall, maybe it doesn't know what it says. It's probably picking up an old stuff, but this is a success message. So let's log in. It says to, okay, let's just click the login button. So now this is what the admin area of WordPress looks like, where you are going to log in. Alright, so this is the back end. Let's visit the front end. Look at this URL, right? You will notice it says wplogin.php. So that is the back end. Okay, so but the main website is here, localhost / my first website. Remember, the folder we put here is my first website, so it has to correspond with this folder, my first website. So that is just what it is. So to visit this, if the name of your website is my second website, it's going to be localhost / my second website. So I'm just giving you an example. So that is how to just access your websites locally. So my first website. So this is how it works, and you know, after developing and all of that, you can now move it to, you know, a live server. So localhost / my first website, and let's press enter to see our first website. So this is what our first website looks like. You can see it. This is what a website looks like when you install with WordPress. So you see it, my first website, just another WordPress website. So you can see. So all of this needs, you know, to be touched, to be worked on, but this is just the first thing you see. And congratulations, if you do this, you've been able to set up your very first website, although it's still on your system locally. So but basically, if you upload this on any live domain and hosting, it's going to work as fine as possible. This is just what everyone else will see. So in the next class, we'll be diving deeper into using WordPress, the admin dashboard, and more. So thank you, and see you in the next class.